Imagine waking up to a city that has never existed, a place no human has ever proven, yet millions swear it must be real. Now imagine another city, not a myth, not a legend, a real place where people laughed, ate bread, kissed their children, and then, in a single day, they turned into statues of death. Two cities, two disappearances, two nightmares. One sank into the ocean, the other was buried in ash. Tonight, history faces its most haunting question: Atlantis versus Pompeii, myth versus reality. And by the end of this video, you'll understand something terrifying. The world doesn't need war to end a civilization. Sometimes, nature does it in silence. Atlantis is not just a lost city. Atlantis is an idea that refuses to disappear. For more than 2,000 years, humans have searched for ruins, coastlines, islands, and oceans, driven by a single haunting question: what if Atlantis was real? The story begins with one man, a philosopher, not a historian, not a king. His name was Plato. Around 360 BCE, Plato wrote about Atlantis in two dialogues, Timaeus and Critias. He described a civilization that existed thousands of years before his time, a civilization so powerful, so wealthy, and so advanced that it rivaled all known nations. According to Plato, Atlantis was not a small island. It was a vast empire, ruling over many lands and seas. Its capital city was built in perfect symmetry, with circular canals, massive walls, and bridges connecting rings of land and water. This was not accidental design. This was planned engineering. Atlantis was said to control water the way other civilizations controlled armies. Canals flowed through the city like veins through a body. Harbors were filled with ships. Trade routes stretched across the world. Its buildings were covered with rare metals. Plato even described a mysterious material called orichalcum, said to shine like fire and be more valuable than gold. In Atlantis, temples were enormous. Statues were gigantic. The Temple of Poseidon, the god of the sea, stood at the heart of the city, decorated with gold, silver, and ivory. This was not a primitive society. This was not a mythological village. Atlantis was described as a superpower. Its people were disciplined, intelligent, and confident. They had laws, they had order, they had abundance. For a time, Atlantis was admired. But Plato's story does not praise Atlantis forever. Something changes. As generations pass, the Atlanteans become greedy. Their hunger for power grows. Their humility fades. They begin to believe they are superior to all others, that the gods favor them, that nothing can touch them. And this is where the story turns dark. According to Plato, Atlantis did not fall because of war. It did not fall because of invasion. It fell because of arrogance. The gods, seeing the corruption of Atlantis, decide to punish it. And then, in one of the most chilling lines ever written about a civilization, Plato says, "In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis disappeared beneath the sea. No warning, no survivors, no ruins left behind. Just silence. An entire civilization erased." And this is where Atlantis becomes more than a story. Because Plato was not known for writing fairy tales. He was known for philosophy, for logic, for ideas meant to teach lessons. So historians have argued for centuries. Was Atlantis a metaphor? A warning about pride and power? Or was it a memory distorted by time? Some believe Atlantis was inspired by real disasters. The eruption of Thera, the destruction of the Minoan civilization, massive tsunamis that wiped out coastal cities. Others believe Atlantis lies beneath the Atlantic Ocean, or near the Mediterranean, or under Antarctica, or buried beneath the sands of the Sahara. Every generation searches again. Maps are drawn. Satellites scan the ocean floor. Expeditions dive into the deep. And yet, nothing conclusive has ever been found. No city, no walls, no temples. But here's the strange part. Atlantis became more powerful because it was never found. Its mystery fed imagination. Atlantis inspired explorers. It inspired writers. It inspired scientists and conspiracy theorists alike. It became the blueprint for every lost civilization story that followed. El Dorado, Lemuria, Shangri-La. Atlantis was the first, and unlike Pompeii, Atlantis left no bodies behind, no frozen faces, no final screams preserved in stone. Atlantis left only questions. Was it a warning about technology advancing faster than wisdom? Was it a lesson about nature's dominance over human pride? Or was it proof that human history is far older and more complex than we admit? Atlantis represents something deeply human, the fear that we are not the first, the fear that others rose higher and fell harder. And maybe that's why Atlantis still haunts us. Because if Atlantis was real, then our modern cities are not unique. Our skyscrapers are not permanent. Our technology is not invincible. Atlantis whispers a terrifying possibility that somewhere in the deep past a civilization reached greatness and still vanished. No matter how advanced, no matter how powerful, Atlantis doesn't need ruins to exist. It survives where no volcano can reach, in the human imagination. Pompeii was not supposed to become famous. Pompeii was not a myth meant to inspire poets. It was a normal Roman city, alive, loud, and human, a place where people argued over prices in the market, where children chased each other through narrow streets, where bread was baked every morning, still warm when it reached the table, where wine was poured without thinking about tomorrow. Pompeii was life. It sat near the Bay of Naples, in the shadow of a mountain most people barely respected. That mountain was Mount Vesuvius, and for centuries Vesuvius looked harmless. Its slopes were green, its soil was rich. It gave farmers strong harvests and sweet grapes. To the people of Pompeii, the volcano wasn't a monster. It was a neighbor, and that is the terrifying part, because the deadliest disasters are often the ones people stop fearing. In the year 79 AD, Pompeii woke up like any other day. Shops opened, street food vendors shouted, the wealthy walked toward bathhouses, the poor carried water, priests lit incense, dogs barked, carts rattled over stone roads. Nothing felt like the end, until the sky changed. First came a deep vibration, like the earth exhaling, then a roar that grew louder and louder, as if something gigantic was tearing itself open underground. And then it happened. A massive column of ash and gas exploded from the volcano, so high it looked like a black tree rising into heaven. At first, people didn't run. Some stared, confused. Some joked, thinking it was only smoke. Some pointed as if it was entertainment. Because humans have a strange weakness. We don't believe in disaster until it touches our skin. Soon ash began to fall. Light at first, almost beautiful, like gray snow drifting slowly from the sky. But then the ash thickened. It covered the streets. It filled the air. It entered lungs. People started coughing. Animals panicked. The sunlight turned yellow, then brown, then almost gone. Pompeii slowly became night in the middle of the day. That's when panic finally arrived. Families grabbed children. Men ran to save money, jewelry, anything they could carry. Some locked their doors, hoping walls could protect them. Others rushed to the harbor, praying boats could escape the nightmare. But nature had already closed the exit. The ash didn't fall alone. Soon, stones began to drop from the sky, hot volcanic rock, smashing rooftops like hammers. Tiles cracked, walls collapsed, screams filled the streets, and then the real killer came. Not fire, not lava, but something far worse. Pyroclastic surges. A pyroclastic surge is not smoke. It is not ash. It is a superheated avalanche of gas, dust, and death, moving faster than a human can run. It doesn't chase you. It erases you. It burns the lungs in seconds. It steals oxygen. It kills silently, brutally. People who survived the first hours now face something impossible. The city became a trap. Some hid inside houses, hugging each other in darkness. Some covered their faces with cloth, thinking it would help. Some held on to hope, believing the eruption would stop. But the volcano kept breathing destruction. Hour after hour, the ash piled higher. Streets disappeared. Buildings sank under gray weight. Pompeii was slowly buried alive. And when the final surges arrived, they finished the city. Thousands of people died. Not as soldiers, not as heroes, but as ordinary humans caught in the wrong moment of history. And yet Pompeii's true horror didn't end there, because Pompeii did something no other disaster city ever did. It preserved death. The ash hardened around bodies like a mold. Over time, the bodies decayed, but the shapes remained. The final poses. Frozen. A mother shielding her child. A man covering his face. A couple holding each other. A dog chained and twisting in panic. Pompeii became a museum of final seconds. When archaeologists later excavated the city, they didn't just discover buildings. They discovered emotions. They found graffiti on walls. They found meals still in kitchens. They found wine jars. They found beds, tools, jewelry, paintings. Pompeii wasn't just ruins, it was a time capsule. A perfect photograph of Roman life, interrupted by the universe. And that is why Pompeii is terrifying in a unique way. Atlantis is scary because we don't know if it existed. Pompeii is scary because we know exactly what happened. Pompeii is proof that civilization is fragile, that morning routines are illusions, that a normal day can become the last day without permission. And the darkest part? Most people in Pompeii probably thought, I'll survive this, until they didn't. So now we reach the real battle. Not Atlantis versus Pompeii as cities, but Atlantis versus Pompeii as forces that shaped human history. Because a city doesn't need to survive to matter. Sometimes the cities that die become the most powerful. And both of these cities did exactly that. Atlantis disappeared without leaving a single confirmed stone behind. Pompeii disappeared while leaving almost everything behind. One became a shadow, the other became a scar. So the question is simple, but haunting. Which one left the greater impact on humanity? Let's begin with Atlantis. Atlantis is not a ruin. Atlantis is a dream. It is the most famous missing place in human imagination. And that alone is power, because Atlantis created a new kind of obsession. Before Atlantis, people feared monsters and gods. After Atlantis, people feared something more unsettling, that entire civilizations could vanish, and history could forget them. Atlantis became the mother of every lost world story. It inspired explorers to cross oceans. It inspired writers to build entire universes. It inspired scientists to question timelines. It inspired historians to argue for centuries. Atlantis gave humanity a dangerous idea. What if we are not the first advanced civilization? That thought is explosive. It turns history into mystery. It turns the past into a hidden battlefield of forgotten empires. It makes people search the ocean floor like detectives. It makes the world feel larger than what we can see. Atlantis didn't just create curiosity, it created a hunger for lost knowledge, a hunger for hidden civilizations, a hunger for proof that humanity is older, deeper, stranger than textbooks admit. And because no one can prove Atlantis false or true, it stays alive forever. It can't be defeated. It can't be fully explained. Atlantis becomes immortal through uncertainty. That is its impact. Atlantis shaped imagination. It shaped the way humans think about the unknown. Now, Pompeii. Pompeii doesn't shape imagination the same way. Pompeii shapes reality. Pompeii is the most brutally preserved disaster in human history. Because Pompeii didn't just disappear, Pompeii was recorded by nature. The ash didn't erase it completely. It sealed it, like a time capsule, like a crime scene frozen in time. Pompeii allowed humanity to see something rare. Not kings, not generals, not heroes, but normal people. Their food, their graffiti, their jokes written on walls, their bedrooms, their markets, their pets, and their final moments. Pompeii gave us the closest thing we will ever have to a camera from the ancient world. This changed archaeology forever. It wasn't just a discovery, it was a revolution. Because Pompeii proved that history isn't only written in books. History is written in kitchens, in streets, in ordinary lives. And Pompeii also taught the world a terrifying lesson, that nature does not negotiate. In one day, a normal city became a cemetery. In one day, routine turned into extinction. Pompeii became a warning that civilization is fragile. And this warning still matters today, because even now, modern cities live beside sleeping volcanoes. Modern cities live beside faults in the earth. Modern cities believe technology makes them safe. Pompeii laughs at that belief. Pompeii says, everything you built can end today. That is impact. Pompeii shaped science. Pompeii shaped disaster awareness. Pompeii shaped the way we understand ancient Rome. Pompeii shaped the way we fear nature. So which impact is greater? Atlantis influences minds through mystery. Pompeii influences minds through proof. Atlantis creates endless questions. Pompeii creates unforgettable answers. Atlantis makes you wonder. Pompeii makes you feel. And here's the deepest difference. Atlantis makes humans chase the past. Pompeii makes humans fear the future. But if we judge impact by how deeply a story enters human culture, Atlantis is unstoppable. It became a global legend, a symbol of the lost perfect world, a warning about pride and collapse. Atlantis lives in every generation because it is unfinished. But if we judge impact by how much something changed real knowledge, Pompeii might win. Because Pompeii did not just inspire stories. It gave evidence. It gave detail. It gave truth. It gave a preserved ancient world we could actually study. In other words, Atlantis changed what humans believed could exist. Pompeii changed what humans can prove existed. And maybe the truth is that the world needed both. Atlantis gave humanity imagination. Pompeii gave humanity memory. One is the greatest myth. The other is the greatest evidence. And the reason they matter so much is because together they tell us the same terrifying message. A civilization can be powerful. A civilization can be rich. A civilization can feel eternal. And still, it can vanish. So, after everything we've seen, the final question returns. Which city truly left the greater impact? Atlantis or Pompeii? If we measure impact by mystery, then Atlantis wins. Because Atlantis is the city that never died. It has no confirmed ruins, yet it lives in every generation. It's the ultimate symbol of the unknown, the hidden past, the civilization that might have been greater than we can imagine. Atlantis doesn't give answers. It gives obsession. But if we measure impact by truth, by evidence, by the raw power of reality, then Pompeii wins. Because Pompeii didn't just disappear, it was preserved. It became the closest thing humanity has to a time machine. A city frozen in its final breath, showing us what life looked like and what death feels like when nature decides to strike. Atlantis makes you wonder. Pompeii makes you remember. And maybe that's the real conclusion. Atlantis is a warning about pride. Pompeii is a warning about fragility. One is the greatest myth, the other is the greatest proof. But together, they tell the same terrifying truth. Civilization is not eternal. Not gold, not walls, not technology, not power. A city can feel unstoppable and still vanish in a single night. So the real winner isn't Atlantis, and it isn't Pompeii. The real winner is nature, because nature doesn't fight wars. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't forgive. It simply waits. And when it moves, history changes. If you want more cinematic VS battles like this, hit like, subscribe, and comment below, Team Atlantis or Team Pompeii, because the next VS story might be even darker.